This story was the basis for a film that was presented at the Cannes Film Festival in 2021 and won an award in the Special Mention category. The film might not have generated as much interest if it were not based on real events. At the beginning of the story, it is necessary to say a few words about a cartel called Los Zetas. The origins of the Los Zetas cartel date back to the 1990s. Initially, Los Zetas were an elite unit of the Gulf Cartel, which we mentioned in the video about the FBI as most wanted people. The members of Los Zetas were former deserters from the Mexican army, people with serious military training. In 2010, Los Zetas broke away from the Gulf Cartel and became so powerful that for some time they controlled a significant part of Mexico. The cartel's activities included drug trafficking, extortion, kidnappings, and robberies. Members of Los Zetas are known for their particular brutality. They often torture their victims before killing them and behead them. The cartel's brutality was particularly evident in 2010 and 2011. In 2010, Los Zetas kidnapped a bus of immigrants, killed and buried 72 people, 14 women and 58 men. In 2011, 193 bodies of peaceful residents who were tortured and killed were found on a ranch. Some of the kidnapped were recruited into the cartel, while others were killed. The city of San Fernando, where our story begins, was under the control of Los Zetas. On January 23, 2014, 20-year-old Karen Rodriguez was driving to her mother's store. The cowboy clothing store belonged to her mother, Miriam Rodriguez, who worked as a nanny in Texas, USA, most of the time and only came to Mexico on weekends. Thus, the management of the store was Karen's responsibility. That day, as Karen was driving to the store, her car was surrounded by 2 trucks. The girl was forced to stop. 2 men got into her car, tied her up, and put her on the back seat, then took her to the house where she lived. While Karen lay in the living room, the kidnappers searched the house for valuables. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. It was a mechanic, a friend of Karen's uncle, who had come to fix one of the family cars. The kidnappers did not expect a random witness. Now they had 2 hostages. They loaded both into the car and disappeared. Later, the mechanic was released without any demands, but Karen's family had to pay a ransom for her. Karen's mother, Miriam, and her father, despite not living together, united for the ransom. Miriam took out a bank loan, and the family strictly followed the kidnappers' instructions. Karen's father left a bag with money at a bus stop, as the kidnappers demanded. Then he waited at the local cemetery for the kidnappers to bring his daughter, but this did not happen. In those years, the police were powerless against drug cartels, and seeking their help was pointless. Karen could simply become one of tens of thousands of missing persons. Therefore, Miriam Rodriguez began to independently seek connections with the Los Zetas cartel. She managed to contact a man nicknamed Al Jr., who agreed to meet her in one of the city's cafes. At the meeting, Miriam begged Al Jr. to return her daughter. He claimed he was not involved in the kidnapping but could help in the search for a fee. During the conversation, the walkie-talkie on Al Jr.'s belt periodically interrupted them, and Miriam learned his real name was Samuel. She gave him $2,000, but a week later, he stopped answering her calls. Sometimes others called, claiming to be the kidnappers and demanding small sums of money. Each payment gave Miriam new hope, but with each failed attempt to get her daughter back, she became more desperate. Miriam moved in with her eldest daughter, Azalea. Miriam had 3 children, Karen, Luis, and Azalea. The latter had left San Fernando, while Karen stayed to help her mother with the store. One morning, after another payment, Miriam went downstairs to the living room and said she understood that Karen would not return. She said this calmly, without emotion. After talking to the mechanic, who was also kidnapped that day, Miriam realized that Samuel, to whom she had given $2,000 for help in finding her daughter, was one of her kidnappers. For several weeks, Miriam searched for Samuel's photos on Facebook. In one of the photos, a young woman in an ice cream shop uniform stood next to him and said, "Dead Victoria," a city 200 kilometers away from the place where Karen was kidnapped. Miriam moved to Ciudad Victoria and found the workplace of this woman. For weeks, she watched the store, hoping that one of her daughter's kidnappers would appear there. After a few weeks, it happened. Miriam followed Samuel and the girl and found out the address where the kidnapper could be found. To learn more about Samuel, Miriam pretended to conduct population surveys. She interviewed neighbors living in the same house where Samuel lived with the girl. Miriam found out how often he was in the house and who the woman was. To prevent Samuel from recognizing her, Miriam cut her hair short, dyed it a different color, and wore large black sunglasses. This way, she compiled a dossier on one of her daughter's kidnappers. Miriam turned to local, state, and federal authorities, but no one helped her. She carried her files everywhere, and every no was not final for her. Eventually, she found a federal police officer willing to help. He said the details and information collected by this woman, working alone, were incredible. Helping her track down the people who kidnapped her daughter was the greatest honor of my career. In the end, the police issued a warrant for Samuel's arrest, but by that time, he had already fled the city. Miriam continued her search for other participants in the kidnapping. She found photos of Samuel with other cartel members. A coincidence helped her. On September 15, 2014, 8 months after Karen's kidnapping, Miriam's son, Luis, accidentally saw Samuel on the street. He informed his mother, and the police arrested Samuel. The interrogation filled in the gaps in Miriam's information, and the police identified another participant in the kidnapping, Javier Solis, who was only 17 years old. Javier was very frightened during the interrogation. Miriam gave him her lunch, to which the officer said, "Why, he does not deserve your kindness." Miriam replied, "No matter what he did, he is still a child, and I am still a mother." Javier led the police to an old ranch. The abandoned house on the ranch was riddled with bullet holes. This old ranch was one of the places where the cartel brought kidnapped people. Miriam Rodriguez searched through a pile of things in the house and found a blue scarf, the same as the one her daughter had. Meanwhile, the police conducted excavations in the area indicated by Javier. Each new layer of earth revealed more and more pieces of human bones. The analysis confirmed that among them were the remains of Karen. On her way back, Miriam stopped at a barbecue restaurant at the entrance to the dirt road leading to the ranch. There she saw a girl she knew well, Sylvia Bantinker. Sylvia's mother was a prostitute, and Sylvia had a difficult youth. Miriam sometimes helped her by giving her daughters clothes. Sylvia replied that she had not heard about Karen's kidnapping. This seemed strange to Miriam, as almost everyone in the city knew about her struggle with the kidnappers. After a couple of days, Miriam came to the conclusion that Sylvia might be involved in Karen's kidnapping. In the profile of one of the kidnappers, who was already in prison, Miriam found a common photo with Sylvia. For weeks, she waited outside the prison during visiting hours until Sylvia came to visit one of her daughter's kidnappers. Miriam and the police arrested Sylvia. It turned out that some of the ransom calls had been made from her house. Sylvia had given the cartel the idea of kidnapping Karen, knowing that she lived alone and that money could be extorted from her family as ransom. Miriam Rodriguez did not intend to stop her fight against the cartel. She continued to gather evidence. Months passed, and the trails grew colder. Some of the culprits were dead, others were in prison. Those who were still free tried to start a new life. Miriam went to the town of Veldum, where she visited the grandmother of one of the kidnappers. The grandmother said that the boy had always been a problem, but at least now he went to church. Miriam began attending church services and found another of her daughter's kidnappers. When the police arrived and arrested him inside the chapel, the parishioners could hardly believe it. One asked Miriam for mercy. She smirked. "Where was your compassion when they were killing my daughter?" Next on her list was a man who now worked as a flower seller. Miriam managed to befriend his relatives. When she finally found him, she got too close. The criminal recognized her despite her hat and dyed hair and tried to run away. However, the 56-year-old Miriam cornered him and, holding a revolver on him, kept him at gunpoint for almost an hour, waiting for the police. Over 3 years, Miriam Rodriguez managed to put 10 people involved in her daughter's kidnapping behind bars. But on May 15, 2017, Mother's Day in Mexico, Miriam Rodriguez arrived at her home. A few weeks earlier, she had broken her leg while tracking down another girl involved in Karen's kidnapping. With difficulty, she got out of the car. At that moment, a white Nissan drove out from around the corner and stopped next to Miriam. 12 shots rang out, and the Nissan sped away. All 12 bullets hit 56-year-old Miriam Rodriguez. People on the street tried to help her, but the 12 bullets left her no chance of survival. 2 months before this, 2 people who had been imprisoned thanks to Miriam, including Enrique Flores, escaped from prison. Following hot leads, the police arrested him and 4 other cartel members involved in Miriam's death. Miriam Rodriguez repeatedly said that she was not afraid of death because she had already died when the cartel killed her daughter. Los Zetas eventually killed Miriam too, but her fight against the cartel became an example of strength and courage. Who appears strong and who appears weak in this story? A massive, brutal cartel afraid of a desperate elderly woman, or her, Miriam Rodriguez?